All right, guys. So what we have here is what I think should be massively bombshell reporting on Donald Trump's close connections with arguably the single most notorious child trafficker in modern American history, Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the reason I say this should be bombshell reporting is because based on what I've seen so far, the mainstream media, and particularly right-wing media, seems to be ignoring this story. The same right-wingers who love to talk about conspiracies, they love to talk about this idea of a deep state, child trafficking ring that involves Bill Clinton and other Democrats, but then when it comes to their big guy himself, Donald Trump, they mysteriously disappear from the conversation or brush it off and act as if these connections here don't really matter. So here we have audio tapes obtained by the author Michael Wolff when he was interviewing Jeffrey Epstein back in 2017, and Epstein goes into intimate detail about how close he actually was with Donald Trump. So here we go, guys. Jeffrey Epstein described himself as Donald Trump's closest friend and claimed intimate knowledge of his proclivity for sex, including cuckolding his best friends, according to recordings obtained exclusively by the Daily Beast. So the convicted PDF file even boasted of his closeness to Trump and his now wife Melania by claiming, quote, "The first time he slept with her was on my plane." We are talking about the infamous Lolita Express here, where Trump apparently first met and had some sort of sexual relations with Melania. They say that Epstein spoke at length about Trump with the author Michael Wolff in August of 2017, 2 years before being found dead in his jail cell. Wolff was researching his bombshell bestseller, Fire and Fury, at the time. So, some questions here, because Wolff has apparently been sitting on these tapes for years, right? I mean, Trump was running for re-election in 2020, and he reportedly had like hundreds of hours of tapes of Jeffrey Epstein going into these details about his relations with Trump and didn't release them until now. I mean, 2017, we're now in 2024. So we're talking about like 7 years later, these tapes finally get released, but they continue. They say that Trump's campaign, or his camp, have referred to these tapes as false smears and election interference. Okay, well, listen, you could talk about the timing of these. Again, I think that these probably should have been released a lot sooner than they were. But to say that they're false smears, I mean, you could, I guess, try to make an argument that Jeff Epstein is just completely lying about what he says in these tapes. But to say that this is election interference, I mean, if the tapes are real, then the tapes are real, and this is giving us an insight into who you are as a person. You can't really kind of, dodge around that at this point. They continue, though. It gets worse, guys. They say Epstein painted a complicated portrait of Trump. He called him charming and always fun. So Trump getting a little bit of an endorsement here from Jeff Epstein, but it gets worse. Capable of extraordinary salesmanship, and suggested that he was personally in favor of Trump's policies on the transgender stuff. Okay. But he alleged that Trump was a serial cheat in his marriages and loved to fuck the wives of his best friends. This is the beacon of Christianity here that we're talking about. Donald Trump loved to fuck his friends' wives. Okay. Wolff shared the tape with the Daily Beast ahead of discussing it on his Fire and Fury podcast on Monday. So last Thursday, he caused shockwaves by revealing a few seconds of a separate recording in which Epstein spoke in detail about the inner workings of the Trump administration. Wolff also said Thursday that the PDF file, Jeff Epstein, showed off photos of Trump with topless young women sitting in his lap. I'm sorry, what? So, does Wolff have his hands on these photos? Have these photos been passed on to the feds? Trump with topless young women sitting on his lap in connection with Jeffrey Epstein? Now, he also points out here that Epstein apparently was so close to Donald Trump that he understood the inner workings of the Trump administration in real time. Like if Trump was talking shit about Kellyanne Conway or another member of his administration, Epstein knew about that. How did he know about that? Were Trump and Epstein in active communication? Was he getting this information from somewhere else? I mean, according to Epstein, he was best friends with Trump, right? Over the course of, potentially years or decades. So, pretty major questions, I think, that need to be asked here. Now, they continue down here. They say Trump's long friendship with Epstein, which spanned the late 1980s, 90s, and early 2000s, had been well documented. In the 90s, the two publicly partied at Mar-a-Lago and went to a Victoria's Secret Angels show together. And in 2002, Trump told New York Magazine of Epstein, quote, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." So this is not new. We've heard this quote before. But can we just sit on this for a second and just imagine the right-wing freakout? I mean, this would be the top story for the right if this had been, sub in Joe Biden for Donald Trump, or sub in any prominent Democrat who's currently holding office for Donald Trump here. This would be the biggest story that they would reference for years and years and years and years to justify their claims, right? I mean, you have Trump saying that Jeffrey Epstein is a terrific guy, and also in the same phrase saying that he loves beautiful women. Many of them are on the younger side. Huh? I'm sorry, what? And this is just something that they brush off to Trump supporters. This is no big deal, right? The Bill Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein connections are a huge deal, massive deal, proof of something nefarious going on there. Bill Clinton should be investigated and prosecuted for that. But this is nothing. Okay, they continue. Epstein's infamous leaked address books also had Trump's own phone number as well as Melania's, while Trump's name appeared 7 times in the passenger logs of Epstein's planes. They say in 2022, Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's former girlfriend who procured him the underage girls, would be sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for the sex trafficking of minors. Upon hearing of her arrest in 2020, Trump, then president, wished her well. He said, quote, "Her friend or boyfriend was either killed or committed suicide in jail. I wonder which one it was." He then went on to say, "Yeah, I wish her well. Good luck." He also doubled down on this, by the way. He was wishing Ghislaine Maxwell well wishes. Huh? They continue. They continue down here. They say that he offers a portrait, Epstein does, of Trump womanizing, yelling at staff, and living a basically friendless life with only his daughter Ivanka, his secretary, and his bodyguard, truly loyal to him. Trump, he said, was almost, quote, "functionally illiterate, but did read the page 6 gossip column of the New York Post. He was, quote, incapable of reading a balance sheet, and any, quote, act of kindness would have been an accident," according to Jeffrey Epstein. When Epstein is diminishing your character and saying any act of kindness you may have displayed throughout your life was just purely by accident or coincidence, should we be asking some questions about Trump's character here, maybe at some point? They say it is Epstein's description of Trump's conduct towards women which is likely to attract the most attention, given the pair's long friendship, and the 28 women who have made accusations against former President Trump of sexual misconduct, which he denies. Many of these attacks are alleged to have occurred when he and Epstein were friends. They say on the tape, Epstein can be heard saying, quote, "He's a horrible human being. He does nasty things to his best friends' wives, anyone he first tries to gain their trust and then uses it to do bad things to them." This is on top of, by the way, when it comes to these accusations against Trump, this other reporting that I covered recently, where Donald Trump was accused of groping this woman, Stacey Williams, years and years ago in 1993. In what she described as a twisted game with Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, they continue. Down here, I think we have a little bit more that I wanted to get to. No, actually, that's it for what I highlighted in this article. But, guys, when you have Jeffrey Epstein accusing you of being a horrible human being, accusing you of womanizing, accusing you of doing bad things to your friends' wives, it's about as strong of a condemnation that you could possibly imagine. This is like Satan telling you that you're being a little bit too immoral. You're going a little bit overboard with the evil here, says Satan. That's what we're talking about here, guys. So, again, this is something that you would think, in a normal world, would be the end of somebody's political career. Should have been the end of his career a long time ago. But for Trump, these kinds of things just slide right off. They just don't matter. I mean, this is just one thing, his connections with Epstein, but think about how many other stories that we have had about Trump that have not ended his career when it would have ended any other politician's career instantaneously, just like that. But somehow this is just like not even one of the main, not even a top 5 story going into the election. It's just a couple days away. Why are Democrats not capitalizing on this? Oh, because you're too busy sending Bill Clinton out to Michigan to go and lecture Arab American voters about how their anti-genocide position is unreasonable? Is that why we can't send messaging out to the American people about Trump's connections to Epstein? Because you have this Bill Clinton problem? Oh, we were so desperate to hear from Bill Clinton. We have to keep him as a part of the campaign, so we can't talk about this? What are we doing here, guys? Now, other Epstein connections that have been discussed in the past, just to remind everybody, Trump defends Labor Secretary Acosta over his Epstein plea deal. He appointed the guy who gave Epstein a sweetheart deal back in, I think it was 2008. When he was convicted, one of the things he was convicted of was procuring a child, right, potentially for sex trafficking. And Trump gave the guy who gave Epstein a sweetheart deal a cabinet position. Is this not suspicious to anybody else? We also have, of course, stories like this. I mean, former Miss Arizona says that Trump came strolling right in to the Miss USA dressing room. We also, of course, have the grab him by the pussy tapes that came out years ago. This is the kind of shit that should be campaign ending. And yet we're in a situation where it really is a coin toss at this point. I've given you guys my perspective on what I think is going to happen in this election. I think Kamala's going to win. But the fact that this kind of shit is not even a top 5 story right now going into the election a few days out is wild. It's wild. Now, we also have some other, new statements from Trump further demonstrating the insanity of this election cycle. So here from Politico, the 2 next things I'm going to show you came out from just like rallies over the last day or so from Trump. Trump says that he doesn't mind if someone has to shoot through the media. So he was making a quip here where he said, we have fake news in the stands here covering this rally, and for somebody to get to me, they would have to shoot through the fake news, and I don't mind that so much. So he's making a sort of joke here about the assassination attempt on him that took place, I think it was in Butler, Pennsylvania, a few months back. From a registered Republican, by the way, who tried to assassinate him. But he's making a joke here and saying, if I were to be assassinated or if somebody were to try to shoot at me again, hopefully they would shoot through the media. I mean, this is the same Trump who repeatedly calls the media the enemy of the people. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan of mainstream U.S. corporate media. I have many disagreements with them. But let's be clear about this. When I have a disagreement with CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or the New York Times or whatever the case may be, my disagreement with them is on the specific substance of their coverage, or it's on sort of a broader manufacturing consent Noam Chomsky analysis of how corporate media functions in this country. When Trump has an issue with the media, he is purely talking about, if you give me favorable coverage, I like you. If you don't, you are the enemy of the people. That's what he means by this. He's not giving some structural critique of corporate media in these kinds of situations. He's saying, you are the enemy of the people because you give me unfavorable coverage. That's what he's talking about here. And he says he doesn't mind if the media is shot at his rallies while somebody's trying to assassinate him. All right. We also had this here, again, just from recent rallies. This was posted today. Trump says he shouldn't have left the White House as he closes campaign with increasingly dark message. So he is still doubling and tripling and quadrupling and quintupling down on the election of 2020 was stolen from me, and I should have just stayed in the White House. The same guy who did the fake elector scheme, who brought dozens and dozens of failed court cases to try to overturn the last election, the guy who was responsible for egging on January 6th in the attack on the Capitol, the chance of hanging his vice president, right? And now he's still doubling down on that, saying, I just shouldn't have left. I just sort of stayed in the White House. He knows he lost. He knows he lost the last election. So to me at this point, anybody who says, and I don't like to go overboard in, the lib analysis of like, oh, he's a threat to democracy, whatever. I like to focus more on like, baseline economic issues and foreign policy issues and substantive things like that. But like, there is no exaggeration here to say that Trump is absolutely a threat to whatever semblance of democracy that we have left in this country. This guy would absolutely make himself a God King dictator if he had the ability to. Make no mistake about that, right? If he could have kept himself in power, regardless of what the results were in 2020, he would have. He tried to. He failed, but he would have if he could have. So I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest, by the way, warning for what's coming up in the next couple of days, if Kamala wins this election on November 5th, Trump is not going to accept defeat. And, God knows what's going to happen in the aftermath if he decides to say the election was rigged again. What kind of potential political violence could be on the horizon? What kind of, legal battles could be on the horizon? Maybe this ends up working its way up to the Supreme Court. Who knows what kinds of shenanigans him and his team are going to try to pull. But that's something he absolutely will try to do. One thing that you have to understand about Trump, he will never admit defeat. He will never admit that he was wrong. And that is definitely going to happen if he loses this election as well. Now, we also have, just to finish off here, some glimpses at Trump's closing rallies here, right? Because not only is he ratcheting up sort of the extreme rhetoric of we're going to send the military after our political opponents, the enemy from within, we're going to deport 20 million people, but you also have just weird shit like this. This is a verbatim transcript of some of Trump's rally. This is from yesterday. He says, when I say insane asylums, and then I say, Dr. Hannibal Lecter, does anybody know? They go crazy. They say, oh, he brings up these names out of, well, that's genius, right? Dr. Hannibal Lecter, there's nobody worse than him. Silence of the Lambs. Who the hell else would even remember that? I have a great memory, but they always hit me. I don't bring it up too much because they have to take such a, he brought up Hannibal Lecter. What? What does he have to do with this? What is it? It has everything to do with it, right? He was, so I've done something for you that I haven't done in 20 speeches. I brought up Dr. Hannibal Lecter, and we're allowing him, you watch these fake people will say again, he brought up Hannibal Lecter, has absolutely nothing to do. I do the weave, right? The weave, it's genius. You bring up Hannibal Lecter, you mention insane asylum. Hannibal Lecter, you go out, no. There will be a time in life where the weave won't finish properly at the bottom, and then we can talk. But right now it's pure genius. Hey, I have an uncle, my uncle, Uncle John, my father's brother, 41 years at MIT, longest serving professor, has so many degrees, he didn't know what the hell to do with them all in the most complicated. I understand a lot of this stuff, I believe in that. Jack Nicklaus is not going to produce a bad golfer, right? That's the way it works. It's just one of those things, and it's in the family, and it's whatever. What? Guys, anybody who has followed my channel any period of time understands that when it came to Joe Biden's declining mental faculties, his senility that was put on full display, the entire reason why many people, including myself, were pushing for him to drop out of the 2024 election, I was covering that extensively. I was pretty brutal in my coverage towards Joe Biden having his senior moments. What in the goddamn fuck is this? If not worse than anything that I've seen from Joe Biden. Joe Biden has his slip-ups. He has his senior moments. I've never seen anything this bad from Joe Biden. They're both the same age. It wouldn't be surprising in the slightest if Trump has the same decline that Joe Biden has. The only difference that I've pointed out previously is that typically Trump has this ability, I guess he calls it the weave here, but he does typically have an ability when he fucks up or when he loses his train of thought to just sort of keep it going, right? So that you almost don't see that he's pausing. Whereas Biden, when he fucks up or he forgets where he's going, he just sort of like gives up. And he's like, well, anyways. And then he gives up. What is this? This is a direct transcript of something that he said at a recent rally. I literally cannot even attempt to make sense of any of this. But in Trump's mind, this is perfectly coherent, right? This is fucking alarming. Like, just at a baseline level. Obviously, you guys know that I'm not a fan of Kamala. Certainly not a fan of Trump. Not a fan of either major political party in this country. Okay? For obvious reasons. But like, this is somebody who could be the most powerful person on the face of the planet? Somebody saying shit like this? What are we talking about? What are we doing here? How broken are we as a country that this guy is the best that Republicans have to offer? I mean, it's amazing. Now, we also have, this is just another example of the same kind of shit here from Kyle Kulinski. Let's listen to this 12-second clip here. See if you guys can make sense of what he's saying here.
No, they don't want windows. They don't want cows. They don't want anything.
They don't want windows. They don't want cows. They don't want anything. Okay, you can see the classic pillow sale going on here from My Pillow on the side of the screen from RSBN Network. Congratulations, guys, on the sponsorship. We also have this. This was kind of amazing. I'm going to put this on like double time speed here. You can see Trump in this clip say that they have never, not had a completely max capacity speeches. And here he is as the camera operator does him absolutely dirty in this clip.
In 9 years, we've had the biggest rallies in history of any country. And every rally's full. You don't have any seats that are empty. You don't have anything. The one we had today, you missed out. Beauty. We could have filled that place up 20 times. That was beautiful. And the Virginia rally, did you hear about the Virginia rally? That was, Glenn Youngkin did a great job, the governor of Virginia. And they had a crowd there that was incredible. And then we came here, and we don't want to be late, but it's very hard when you do these things. It's very hard. And you don't mind a little bit. We weren't very late. Just a few minutes. Depending on your definition of when it's going to start. But, I was talking to some of the people. It's sort of, in a way it's sad, in a way it's beautiful. I was talking to them and I said, this is coming to an end. These rallies are coming to an end. We've been doing them, think of it, for like 9 years. We started a year before, and we've had tremendous success. In 2016, we did phenomenally, right? We went in, they gave us a 3% chance, and sort of like amazing, right? 3%. That means 97% for crooked Hillary and 3% for me. And I was saying...
Okay, so we always fill our rallies. The Democrats can't fill their rallies, and then the cameraman again does him absolutely dirty here and pans across to all of the empty seats and people literally leaving as he's speaking in this clip. Amazing stuff. Now, we also have in the closing days some more information in terms of what Trump is thinking of doing with his potential cabinet should he win in this election. So a few key points here from Forbes in terms of what a Trump administration would look like. So they say that RFK has met privately with Trump and his officials about drawing up plans for a new administration, which could involve RFK Jr. taking a role as the White House czar instead of leading a government agency, which he would never get approved, for through the Senate process there, according to 4 unnamed people with the planning. So Trump apparently is going to try to make RFK Jr. either the head of HHS, if he could get that through the Senate process, which again, I doubt that he could, but if not that, then he'll make him some sort of like a health czar. RFK Jr. Now, we also have, in September, him saying that he would create a Government Efficiency Commission, also known as DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, because we're all fucking 12 years old, I guess, that would be led by billionaire Elon Musk, whom Trump said he would allow to lead this task force. I saw an amazing tweet earlier today, by the way, where Elon was pushing this idea that, Democrats are controlled by their radical left billionaire donors. And it's like, to some extent, yeah, Democrats as a party are absolutely controlled in the same way that Republicans are by corporate donors, billionaire donors, etc. That's absolutely true. But you are the wealthiest man on the face of the planet. You are one of the biggest, if not the single biggest, donors to the Trump campaign. You are helping to run largely his ground campaign. You are operating an entire social media platform on his behalf, okay? And he has the audacity to say that there's some sort of a conspiracy on the other side. It's like, you are the conspiracy. You are literally the conspiracy here. I mean, it's amazing, right? So Elon Musk in the government, RFK Jr. in the government. We also have apparently JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon being considered as Treasury Secretary. We also say in terms of defense secretary, he's considering Tom Cotton, as well as Mike Pompeo. Don't ever tell me that Trump is anti-war. Don't tell me that he's taking on the neocons or the war hawks when he's considering appointing Tom fucking Cotton to be his defense secretary. I mean, this is what a Trump White House could potentially look like. Now, in terms of the politics of this, I think Hassan made a good point here. What the fuck is going on with your profile picture here, man? But he says, basically, and I think this is, if Trump loses, right? Here's why. Roe v. Wade, the overturning of Roe v. Wade from the Supreme Court justices that Trump appointed, January 6th, trying to keep himself in power, continuing to double and triple and quadruple down on him not losing the 2020 election. J.D. Vance as a VP pick, absolutely terrible, didn't help to expand your coalition. Tens of millions of dollars wasted on, random anti-trans ads, anti-immigrant screeds instead of message discipline on the economy, dog shit tariff plan that was effectively countermeasured as a mass sales tax, which is essentially what it is, and then threatening to use the military on the enemy from within. So there you go, guys. I mean, this is going to be one of my closing videos until the election on Donald Trump. If he loses, this kind of shit is why. I wish that the Epstein story was much bigger than it is right now, but if he loses, these are some of the reasons why. And it really shouldn't surprise anybody. At this point, again, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump wins. I wouldn't be surprised if Kamala wins, but Trump is running an absolutely horrible campaign. He is surrounding himself by some of the most unlikable people in the entire country. Elon Musk, RFK Jr., cannot stop talking about Hannibal Lecter and sharks versus electric boating incidents, trans culture war issues. He has no populist messaging that has remained in his campaign. It's a terrible campaign. So I think Kamala's also running a bad campaign, but man, it is really a race to the bottom here. And I think out of the two of them, Trump's is much worse. It's much worse. And so I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if this was not exactly a winning formula, let's say.
Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying